Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be doing the Let's Build for the Amazon. So Let's Build is a series where I take the classes that I've made and give you examples of how I would build the class out. I pick the race, the class, the background, make all the options, and explain my thoughts behind each one of those choices. Now, before I jump in too far, I'm going to set a few ground rules. I am always going to be doing variant human and standard array with no multi-classing. This is because I want to show off everything that the class can do. Variant human just is, to put it politely, bland. Standard array is standard, easy to do, no multi-classing so that I can push it out to level 20. And then lastly, I'm not going to be talking about gear upgrades unless they lead to a drastic change in playstyle or there's a mechanical difference, such as like a bow versus a crossbow, just as an example. So first off, we have the elemental boazon. So using standard array, we've got a 12 in strength, putting a 15 in dexterity, a 14 in constitution, 10 in intelligence, 13 in wisdom, and an 8 in charisma. This allows us to bump that dexterity and wisdom up with our variant human ability score modifiers, or ability score increases, and then we'll pick medicine for our skill, and sharpshooter for the feat. For our background, I went with the Outlander. The Outlander, this is kind of like the person who's gone and traveled and spends a lot of time outside, so they get athletics and survival. This is the elemental boazon, so I figured, you're out in the elements, you're connecting to nature a little bit more, so Outlander felt pretty good. For our skills for the Amazon, we're picking up acrobatics and stealth. This is, you're moving around, you're going to be able to balance on things and sneak up on people because you've spent so much time in the wild. For our starting gear, I went with the leather armor because we are focusing on dexterity, the longbow and 20 arrows because we are the bow Amazon, and 2 daggers simply because they're handy to have. I went with Explorer's Pack because that is just kind of what I've done for all of these subclasses because it's not a huge difference, but it makes sense. At level 1, we also got a fighting style, and of course, I went with Archery. Archery bumps our bonus to hit with bows, or with ranged weapons, by 2. So it becomes a lot more accurate, which is going to help with that sharpshooter damage. Taking that -5 to hit is now basically a -3, which means that our damage is going to go up significantly because we're less likely to hit. Less likely to miss, excuse me. At level 1, we also get Inner Sight. Inner Sight allows us to kind of sense the location of creatures around us. And we can use it a number of times equal to our wisdom modifier. And currently that is 2. We're starting off with that 14. So this is pretty handy at level 1. But let's go on to level 2 when we pick up the elemental boazon, or the bow elemental subclass. So this is when we really start getting into it. We get our enchanted shot. Enchanted shot allows us to, when we hit or when we make an attack, we can have the creature that we hit make a constitution saving throw and reduce its speed and remove its reaction, or just deal a little bit of extra fire damage. Now, both dexterity and wisdom are important here because you need to have dexterity in order to hit, and you need to have wisdom in order so that the creatures can fail the saving throw. And that is why, as you'll see, I'll be bumping up my dexterity first before the wisdom, but I'll get into that at level 4. At level 3, we get dodge. Whenever you take the dodge action on your turn, you add your wisdom modifier to your AC and dexterity saving throws as long as that dodge action is active. Slightly weird wording, but that's for an ability later on that interacts with it. Dodge allows us to be just a little bit more tanky when we need to be. If we need to get all the way through a bunch of enemies to run away, for example, you can take the dodge action, add your +2 wisdom modifier to your armor class, and just get all the way through those creatures without having to, or while being less likely to be hit. At level 4, we get our first ability score increase, and I went with a double dex upgrade. This bumps our dexterity from 16 up to 18 because, like I said, the enchanted shot is an on-hit effect. You want to be hitting as often as possible. The archery fighting style is going to definitely help there, but we could also be bumping in sharpshooter and our archery as well. It's also going to deal just a little bit extra damage. It's just very, very nice. Bump our saving throws, bump some of our skills. My goodness, bumping up our skills a little bit so that we also have, a little bit more we're a little more skillful. At level 5, we get our extra attack. Now, this is a fairly recent change. I pulled it out of the physical spears on and dropped it in here and bumped critical strike from 5th up to 7th. Extra attack allows us to attack twice, but keep in mind that enchanted shot is only one time per turn. At level 6, we get empowered shot. This bumps our enchanted shot up to be a little bit more powerful, restricting the action and bonus action, as well as dealing a little bit more fire damage. At 7th level, we get critical strike. This bumps our critical hit ratio range out to a 19 or 20. This is actually very, very nice. Being able to get those critical hits on a 19 gives us just that much more damage. It's not as useful for the bow Amazon right here as some of the later ones, but it's still very, very nice. We also get slow missiles. This allows a special reaction on each turn to grant disadvantage on a ranged attack against a creature within 30 feet of you, including yourself, as long as you can see the attack. Because you are standing in the back, this is also going to allow you to prevent people from hitting you as well. So it's pretty good. At level 8, we're going to bump our dexterity up again with our second ability score increase. This is going to push us out to a 20. So right now we have a +10 to hit. Goodness. From +5 dexterity, +3 proficiency, and a +2 to archery. That's really dang good. And that means sharpshooter is going to be hitting consistently, even with that detrimental -5. But that also means that we're also criticaling on that 19 as well from the critical strike in the previous level. So we're going to be dealing a significant amount of damage right here. Especially if we keep choosing the fire damage, which is half as much damage on a success. At level 9, we get Penetrate. Penetrate allows you to add your Wisdom modifier to your weapon attack rolls, so it makes you even more accurate. Now, you can only use it a number of times per long rest equal to your Wisdom modifier, so we only get 2 uses per long rest. But this is definitely like someone's at... well, you've got sharpshooter, so long range doesn't matter. But you've got a really high AC creature that you need to hit this shot on, and you can get that just an additional +2, and it's going to be very, very useful. At level 10, we get Expanding Shot. Expanding Shot bumps up Enchanted Shot even further, giving the creature that fails the saving throw the incapacitated condition, as well as dropping its speed to 0, and it can't gain any benefits to speed. And then fire bumps your damage up to 3d6. So it's very much kind of a somewhat sneak attack now that I'm thinking about it. In addition, that expanding shot allows you to spend a bonus action to make your enchanted shot hit things around the creature that you hit. It's a number of times per long rest equal to your wisdom modifier, or per short or long rest, equal to your wisdom modifier. So we only get that twice per short rest, but you're still dealing significant amount of damage and potentially locking down entire groups of creatures. At level 11, we are picking up a void. Whenever you become the target of an attack from a creature you can see, or make a dexterity saving throw, you can take the dodge action as a reaction, but the benefits only last until the end of turn. This is why dodge was worded so weirdly, was because this allows you to take dodge as a reaction, but only lasts until the end of turn. This is kind of like evasion from the rogue and the monk, but interacts with dodge in a slightly different manner. At level 12, we pick up Piercer. This is going to pour on a ton more damage because we have that critical hit ratio expanded, or critical hit range expanded to a 19 or 20. You're going to be dealing more damage on every turn, or more. You're going to be more likely to get that additional damage every turn. Unfortunately, Piercer does unfortunately, Piercer does have an ability score increase attached to it, but our dexterity is maxed out, so I'm going to put that in that +1 into strength, even though it's not really useful. Level 13, we get Decoy. This summons a physical copy of yourself. It has a number of hit points equal to 1/3 your maximum hit points, rounded down. AC equal to 10 plus your proficiency bonus, and if anybody tries to attack you or some other creature, then you can force the creature to attack the decoy instead. This gives a pretty good battlefield control, and it absorbs a ton more hit points. It also does allow you, or encourage you, to put some points into your wisdom so that more creatures will fail the saving throw. At level 14, we're picking up the improved critical strike. This bumps our critical hit range out to an 18 to 20. So we have the same critical hit range that the champion fighter has. And that makes all of this far more important to get those hits. Now, that does interact very... I don't know if negatively is the right choice, but it might be too powerful considering the Elemental Boson's level 15 feature, Pierce. Pierce allows you to, when you hit a creature, it continues in a line and hits all the other creatures behind it. That means if you used your elemental or enchanted shot, that means that all of those creatures you hit will also be required to make that saving throw. However, if you critical on that shot, you're going to be dealing a ton of damage if you can line it up and get people. I mean, you hit 2 or 3 creatures with one attack, and suddenly it's, you dumped sharpshooter in there, you critical on the hit, you have pierce, you reroll your damage die, and now you're dealing, 30 damage, 20, 25, 30 damage on a single hit to multiple creatures. It's insane. Now, granted, you are level 15, so you should be approaching God-slaying territory, but still, that's very, very powerful. At level 16, we're finally bumping our wisdom up. This will give us a better save DC, as well as additional uses of that expanding shot and inner sight and penetrate. So you're going to be a little bit more accurate more often. You're going to have more opportunities to deal more damage or to lock down the battlefield. But it is, especially for this subclass, wisdom becomes a lot more important. At level 17, we're picking up evade. Your movement no longer provokes opportunity attacks. Nothing really special, but it is pretty nice if you get surrounded. People run into the back line, you can just go, man, no thanks, I'm good, and then leave. At 18th level, we're picking up Valkyrie. Valkyrie is incredibly powerful. We are in God-slaying territory now. At 18th level, you get Valkyrie. Valkyrie is basically another body on the battlefield that you can drop and deal a ton more damage. It's only once per long rest, so use it sparingly. But it's basically a summon that you just drop on the battlefield. You can use it for flanking. You can use it for, your bow is on, so meh. You can help your allies flank. You can use it as a distraction, and it's just another 120 hit points that you drop on the battlefield. At level 19, we're picking up another ability score increase, and this time we are pushing our wisdom out to 18. This is the last time we'll be able to bump our wisdom up and see the comments about level 16. And then, of course, at level 20, we get Goddess's Chosen. The goddess has deemed you worthy to receive her blessing. As a bonus action, you can blind people in a 30-foot radius. And then people in the bright light that you're emanating have disadvantage on your saving throws, and your weapon attacks deal an additional 1d8 radiant damage. So this is, interestingly enough, an ability that actually encourages you to get closer to the enemy. So if you can actually stand within 30 feet of a creature, bringing them into the bright light that you're shedding, you can give them disadvantage on those attacks, or on those saving throws from your enchanted shot. So you could be a quote-unquote melee archer. Not advisable, but still a possibility. So that is my thoughts on the Elemental Boazon. I think it's pretty strong. I think it's pretty typical. It feels like an Amazon, feels like an Elemental Boazon from Diablo 2. And there's a couple things that you could move around and tweak. If you want to get mobile, for example, it's pretty good so that you can run around and avoid getting hit. But now let's move on to the next subclass, the Physical Boazon. Things are going to be a little different in this one. There's some shuffling around of abilities because this is a very different subclass, and I went for a slightly different flavor. I'm going to go over the major differences, but I'm not going to be going into the details of each level unless it is necessary because, it's the same thing as the previous subclass. So for our stats, I put a 12 in strength, I put a 15 in dexterity, a 14 in constitution, an 8 in intelligence, a 13 in wisdom, and a 10 in charisma. This is shuffled around a bit because the background I went for is the soldier. They have proficiency in athletics and intimidation, so I figured someone who's not, no insult to the military, but someone who's not quite as bright, but just a little bit more, intimidating. The race, of course, is variant human, put points into dexterity and wisdom, as well as picking up perception and sharpshooter as the feat. For the skills, I chose acrobatics and stealth yet again. Soldiering is very physical, and you'd be trained potentially to sneak around. As this is a dexterity class, or a dexterity subclass, I went with leather armor, longbow, and 20 arrows, 2 daggers, and the explorer's pack, basically the same as the Elemental Boazon. For the fighting style, I picked up archery yet again. At level 2, we get the subclass, which is the bow physical, and we're picking up Magic Arrow. Magic Arrow allows you to create arrows from nothing. Your weapons create their own ammunition. You ignore the loading property of weapons, which will come into play later, and produces its own ammunition for ranged attacks and abilities that require ammunition. As a note, this might be relevant later, you can make the weapon's damage force instead of its normal type. This is very good for getting around resistances to piercing, but it does cause some negative interactions with one of the feats later. So at level 4, we are bumping up that dexterity from 16 up to 18. This is going to be again, you're a dexterity class. You want to have at least an 18 before you do pretty much anything else in any of your other skills. Now, by level 4, you want to pick up the heavy crossbow. The reason being is the longbow is very nice, but it's a 1d8, but the heavy crossbow is a 1d10. Keep in mind that we have sharpshooter, and sharpshooter ignores long range, or ignores disadvantage at long range. And besides, the range isn't going to be needed as much, but having that extra 1 to 2 damage can be very helpful, especially since you get that critical strike improvement later on. Another reason why you want to pick up the heavy crossbow for this subclass is because Magic Arrow ignores the loading property. The heavy crossbow can be used to get 2 attacks next level with extra attack. So having 1d10 is going to be very, very nice. 1d10 twice per turn is going to be very nice. At level 6, we pick up multiple shot. This is a 30-foot cone of dexterity saving throw or take damage equal to 1 roll of your weapon's damage die, which is another reason why you should pick up that heavy crossbow. Now, currently, the saving throw is not particularly good, but it is a sizable area. 30-foot cone is a sizable area, and it's not limited to a number of times per short or long rest. You don't get to add your dexterity to the damage, so you want to be hitting 2, maybe 3 creatures, and that's not always going to show up, but it's a great mob killer. You get attacked by goblins or fallen in this case. Yeah, just walk up, bam! Suddenly you shotgun the whole thing down. At level 8, we're going to be picking up the Piercer feat instead of bumping our dexterity up to level 20. This is so that we can get that additional damage from Piercer. See previous comments about it. The ability score is, of course, going to be dexterity. Now, we're going to have that dangling odd dexterity for quite a few levels, but I think that's going to be perfectly acceptable for now. Now, the thing about this is Piercer only works with piercing damage, surprisingly. The problem is Magic Arrow turns your damage into force, which does not trigger Piercer. So be careful about when you trigger that Magic Arrow ability. At level 10, we get another subclass ability, Guided Arrow. You can now attack things that you cannot see, but you have seen within 1 minute. Now, because you can't see them, you do have disadvantage, but you're still able to make an attack against the creature. It's very handy for tracking down invisible creatures or creatures that are hiding. You can talk to your DM about whether or not it will reveal the location of the creature or if the arrow just rushes off and disappears. At level 12, we are going to bump our wisdom up to 16 because multiple shot is very useful. Bumping that wisdom up is going to give you more uses of some of the other abilities from your main class and increase your saving throw DC. Level 15, we get another subclass ability, and that is Strafe. You pick a target spot, and you can attack things within 15 feet of that spot. Now, the reason why we got Piercer at level 8 and then went with Wisdom at level 12 is because the next level, 16, is going to give us the Athlete feat, which will bump our dexterity up to 20. Having one level of basically -1 to attack and damage is, I think, acceptable to an acceptable trade-off for 4 levels of +1 to your saving throws, or saving throw DCs. At level 19, we get another ability score increase, and this time I'm bumping our wisdom up to 18. Same thing as usual. Bump that save DC, get a few extra abilities that you can use a few more times, and that's it. I like this class. I think that the physical boson, especially kind of as that soldier idea, works very well. If you decide to go play a physical boson, just remember to upgrade your armor and upgrade your gear to a heavy crossbow. can technically keep your longbow for the whole time, but having an additional 1 to 2 points of damage is pretty good over time. Next, we have the Javelin Lightning Amazon. This is going to be a little different because this is a strength-based class or subclass because you're going to be throwing things. So we're going to put that 15 in strength. We're going to give it 12 dexterity, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 8 charisma. For the variant human abilities, we're going to put it into strength and wisdom to round them up to an even number. We're going to pick up medicine, and we're going to pick up piercer right off the bat and put that point into strength. Javelins are piercing damage, so you want to start off with piercer, and the reason for it, for piercer instead of sharpshooter, is because the lightning javelin has athletic form at level 2 and perfect form at level 10, and those they give basically 2 out of the 3 benefits of sharpshooter. Now, of course, that -2 to hit or -5 to hit plus 10 to damage is very, very good, but keep in mind that you don't get the archery fighting style as well. So you're going to be a little bit less accurate whenever you use that. So I'll get into all of that in a little bit. Now, I went with the Acolyte for the background because the Acolyte is a follower of a god, and the Amazons have a goddess of lightning. So this is kind of the person who's following in the footsteps of her sisters and of following in the ways of this goddess. So we're going to pick up Insight and Religion from that background. For the skills, I went with Arcana and Investigation, get a little bit of magic, a little bit of finding things to give us some flavor. No real reason why Arcana and Investigation, just telling a story. For the gear, we're picking up the Chain Shirt because we are a strength class. Dexterity is not going to matter as much. We're going to pick up a spear, a shield, 5 javelins, and the Explorer's Pack. So slightly different gear from the Boazons. And because the Javelin, or the Amazon, gets a fighting style, we're going to pick up the Thrown Weapon fighting style. You are going to be dealing an additional 2 damage whenever you hit with that thrown weapon. And that's going to stack very nicely, very neatly with the Piercer feat as well. Just continuing additional damage, not that they have technically any interactions. At level 2, we pick up our subclass, the Javelin Lightning Amazon. We're going to pick up Athletic Form. Athletic Form gives you a better range for your javelins, spears, and tridents, out to a range of 40 feet for your normal range and 160 feet for your long range. And then your ranged weapon attacks with them also ignore half cover, and 3/4 cover only gives them a +2 bonus to their armors, or to the creature's armor class. So this is why we don't have sharpshooter yet, or at all, because Athletic Form just does the thing that sharpshooter does anyway. Again, not that -5 + 10 damage, but still, you're getting parts of it, so it's less needed. At level 4, we're picking up the Heavily Armored Feat. This is interesting. I actually went through all of the abilities all of the feats that give you a bonus to your strength, and Heavily Armored was the only one that really fit. So we're picking up strength, bumping that strength up from a 17 to an 18 and getting heavy armor proficiency. Now this does mean that you can swap out that Chain Shirt, which is medium armor, for something a little bit, heavier. That's why the dexterity is 12 instead of 14, is because I knew that at level 4, I'm going to be swapping out for that heavy armor, which negates the need to have dexterity at all. So bumping in the Constitution gives you a little bit more survivability. At level 6, we pick up the Lightning Javelin subclass feature. This allows you to turn your ranged weapon attack with javelins, spears, and tridents into a bolt of lightning. You cast Lightning Bolt. And that means that you want to have a high enough wisdom, which is what we're going to do at level 8. Instead of bumping your strength up to 20, we're going to be bumping up that wisdom to get that little bit of extra damage out from the dexterity saving throw. At level 10, we're picking up the perfect form. It's basically athletic form improved. The normal and long ranges of javelins, spears, and tridents you throw become 50 to 200, and then attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on the attack, and your attacks with them ignore half and 3/4 cover. This is 2/3 of sharpshooter, so meh. This does allow you to stand much further back from the combat, so you don't need to have your heavy armor as much, but it's still very nice to have, especially if you invest into a shield. So you're actually sitting on the back lines with potentially a 20 AC, very, very difficult to hit. And you end up with lightning javelin, and you just have a 120-foot line of lightning. I think it's twice per long rest. Yeah, twice per long rest. So you're actually doing, it's a dangerous thing. Just remember to stock up on your javelins, spears, and tridents. At level 12, we get another ability score increase, and this time we're bumping our strength up to 20. This is where monsters start having a little bit higher AC, and having that +1 damage and +1 accuracy is going to be very, very handy. Level 15, we get Lightning Fury. This is when you hit, you can cast Chain Lightning as a part of the damage with a ranged weapon attack using trident, yada, yada, yada. And this is why having a high enough wisdom is very, very good. So 16 and 19 for our ability score increases, we're going to be bumping those wisdom. We're going to be bumping wisdom up to that max of 20. So your final stats are 20 strength, 12 dexterity, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, 20 wisdom, and 8 charisma. So you are actually doing quite a bit of damage getting that lightning javelin and lightning fury going. You don't get to use them very often, but that's 3 abilities of just a ton of lightning damage. So you're also hucking these things at a fairly decent range and doing some significant damage as well. I wouldn't discount it. Just, again, reminder to stock up on those javelins, spears, and tridents. All right, the next subclass is the Poisoned Javelin. Now, this one was a little special, a little different, because instead of going for a ton of damage, I went the healer route. I'll explain that when we get to level 2, but this is going to be a fairly unique subclass. Alright, so much like the previous subclass, we are using a 15 in strength, 14 in dexterity, 12 in constitution, 10 in intelligence, 13 in wisdom, and 8 in charisma. You'll notice that the dexterity and constitution are switched. There's a reason for that, because you're going to be keeping with that chain shirt. You're not going to be picking up heavy armor proficiency. For our variant human stats, we're going to be putting points into strength and wisdom. We're going to be picking up nature and the healer feat. So this is an excellent feat that when you stabilize a creature, the creature gets 1 hit point, so they're automatically back up, and then you can expend the use of of the healer's kit to do kind of a miniature cure wounds. It's once per short or long rest on that creature, but it is basically just a repeatable cure wounds. For the background, we're picking up Sage, which gives us Arcana and History. This is the flavor I'm kind of going for is someone who's spent a little bit of time in the wild studying, well, nature, studying herbs and medicine and whatnot. So they have, a more grounded experience in the wild. Because of that, I'm picking up Perception and Investigation as well, just being very aware and alert of their surroundings. For the gear, we're picking up Chain Shirt, Spear, Shield, 5 Javelins, and Explorer's Pack. And for the fighting style, we're picking up Defense. Defense gives us a +1 AC while we are wearing armor. And you're the healer. you're going to be a little bit squishier, but you're going to be the one running around the battlefield doing basically trauma. So having that +1 AC is going to be very, very handy. At level 2, we're picking up the subclass for the Javelin Poison. And our first ability is called Student of the Body. You get either proficiency in the nature skill and with the Poisoner's Kit, or proficiency in medicine. And when you use a healer's kit on a creature, it also regains hit points equal to 3 times your wisdom modifier. And it can't regain hit points this way until it finishes a short or long rest. So kind of a miniature version of healer. Now, if you don't have the healer feat, then when you stabilize a creature using a healer's kit, then they would regain that 3 hit points, or 3 times your wisdom modifier hit points. But because you have the healer feat, that natural healing of expending a use of that healer's kit is now amplified incredibly. So we start off with a +2 in wisdom, so you're gaining an additional 6 to whenever you heal a creature. That means at level 2, using a healer's kit gives you between 11 and 16 hit points, once per short rest. And, you do have to, pay for the healer's kit, but they're 10 gold apiece. Whereas, say, healing potions are not 10 gold apiece. They are individual and they're like 25 gold pieces, and they are one-time use. If you can pick up the healer feat, you're going to save a ton of money, and it's going to be really nice for your party. So clearly we're picking up the medicine half of the Student of the Body because we are that healer. At level 4, interestingly enough, we're going to be bumping up our strength up to from 16 up to 18. This means that we're going to be delaying our wisdom a little bit, but you're a combat medic. You're dealing damage while healing as well. There's no shame, and there's actually a viable build where you put points into wisdom, but I decided I'd rather have that 18 strength instead. At level 6, we're picking up the Poison Javelin. This is another reason why putting points into wisdom might actually be better at level 4, because Poison Javelin gives you a 30-foot line of poison that deals 2d6 poison damage and poisons creatures for 1 minute, and they take an additional 1d6 poison on each of their turns if they can continue to fail the saving throws. So that does mean that pushing that wisdom up would be very, very nice, which is exactly what we're going to do at level 8. At level 10, we pick up Master of the Body, and this is the one that I really, really, really like. Master of the Body, you get additional options for your Student of the Body ability. You get either expertise in nature skill and with the Poisoner's Kit, and you gain resistance to poison, or you gain expertise in medicine, and when you use a healer's kit, you can make a DC 20 wisdom medicine check. If you succeed, you don't expend a use of the kit. So by 10th level, you have your ability score is a +3, and then you have a +3 to your proficiency, so that is 3, 6, 9. Yeah, so you have a +9 to your ability score, or to your medicine checks. So that means you can auto-stabilize anybody, because the lowest you can get is a 1. But that means that's a 45% chance to just not use a charge of the healer's kit. And if you're low on gold, or out in the middle of nowhere, having that healer's kit is going to be very, 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 very nice. And making it last for longer is going to be very, very nice. Now, at level 12, I'm picking up Mobile. Much like what I said earlier on, you're going to be running around the battlefield doing trauma. So having that 10 feet of additional movement is going to be very handy if you need to get in, because you're still a backline character, because you're throwing things. So you need to be able to get in and get out. Picking up Mobile also allows you to use your Poison Javelin more effectively, because you can get into position. So it's just a very, very handy thing to have. Again, you could bump your wisdom. I decided to go with Mobile. At level 15, we're picking up the Plague Javelin. Much like the Lightning Fury of the previous subclass, Plague Javelin is an area of effect. You hit a creature, and you cast Cloud Kill as part of the damage. Very dangerous. Once per long rest. Use it wisely. And then the last two ability score increases at 16 and 19. We're going to be bumping up our strength up to 20 and our wisdom up to 18 to get the last little bits of damage out of this build. I'm very happy with this build. I feel like it actually does something. It's a little less damagey, a little less ARPG and a little more D&D. You definitely can go with the poison build and get Poisoner and get, all kinds of other potential things. You could poison your weapons and deal additional damage that way. But I decided to go with the healer because I like this idea. I love the idea of a rogue or a monk who is a trauma surgeon who just dashes in, uses the healer's kit, and then gets out of dodge. I mean, imagine for a moment the like a Way of Mercy monk potentially being able to get in there, heal everybody, and then leave. It's a similar idea. All right, for the next one, we have the Lightning Spear Amazon. This one is very interesting because this is the first one where we're actively using a shield. It is a strength class. It is a melee class, so it is going to be strength of 15, dexterity of 12, constitution 14, intelligence 10, wisdom 13, and charisma 8. For the variant human, we're putting our points into strength and wisdom. We're going to be putting points into medicine, and we are picking up the piercer feat, putting that point into strength. Again, like the lightning Javelin, we're picking up the acolyte background, follower of the lightning goddess. And then for our skills, we're going with Arcana and Investigation. We are picking up the chain shirt, spear, shield, 5 javelins, and an explorer's pack. And for the fighting style, we are picking up dueling. You absolutely can go great weapon fighting for this one. Just drop the shield, go with a two-handed pike or a lance or something. But I like the kind of shield and spear, walking up and stabbing somebody. Now, at level 2, we pick up our subclass, and this gives us Power Strike. Whenever we make a melee weapon attack with a lance, pike, spear, or trident, we can make our weapon's damage lightning, and the creature cannot take reactions until the start of its next turn. So this is kind of, sort of, but not really, whatever the spell is, Lightning Hands thing, Shocking Grasp, my goodness. This is kind of, sort of, not really, but basically Shocking Grasp. The actual Power Strike is just lightning damage, but I figured, let's bring in some more interesting stuff. At level 4, we're going to round off our strength with Heavily Armored, which is, again, why we have a 14 Constitution and 12 Dexterity. See previous comments, also because of, or from one of the previous classes. At level 6, we're picking up Charged Strike. Charged Strike is going to be the main ability that we're using here. Whenever you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack on your turn using lance, pike, spear, or trident, you can also cast Charged Bolts as part of dealing the damage without the somatic components, and the creature you hit must be included in the area of effect. It's just a 15-foot cone, 1d4 lightning damage. At this point, it is now 2d4 lightning damage, and will continue to scale as you go up. Now, what this means is Charge Strike is an on-hit effect, which means we want our strength as high as possible and our wisdom, because it is a saving throw, as high as possible. So that means at level 8, we're bumping our strength up to 20 to max that out, max that bonus to hit. At level 10, we get Lightning Absorb. That is gives us resistance to lightning, and whenever you take lightning damage, you can regain hit points equal to half the lightning damage you took, rounded up, and you can do that a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So if you get struck by lightning, or you get stuck in the path of a lightning bolt or something like that, you can mitigate the damage quite significantly. At level 12, we're going to bump our wisdom up to 16 because, again, charge strike dealing lightning damage on a dexterity saving throw, having that saving throw DC as high as possible is going to be very, very nice. And then at level 15, we get Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike is literally the melee version of Lightning Fury. That's basically it. You charge chain lightning. You chain lightning a creature whenever you hit with a lance, pike, spear, or trident, and it's once per long rest. Which is, again, why we want our wisdom as high as possible. Bumping that wisdom up to 18 via the ability score increases at 16 and 19. So this one I like very much as well. I love the idea of being able to have an on-hit effect every time. Is it too powerful now with extra attack? Probably. But overall, I actually like this build quite a bit. Lastly, on the Amazon's build, we're going to do the Spear Physical Amazon. This one I went kind of off the rails. You can definitely do a max out the damage build with this. You can drop in a pike and you can do all kinds of, like, a ton of damage. I decided to go a little differently. I went with a Mage Hunter build. So we're going to put our points into strength, obviously, because we are a Spearazon, melee Spearazon. 14 dexterity, 12 constitution, 10 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 8 charisma. For the variant human, we put our points into strength and wisdom. We pick up perception, and we pick up the piercer feat, putting our point into strength. For the background, we are a soldier, giving us athletics and intimidation. And then for the skills, we're going to pick up Arcana and Investigation. Now, all of these skills are very important because mages cast illusions, and you want to be able to find where they have gone, or they turn invisible, and you want to track them down. So this is kind of the someone's gone rogue and we need to find them kind of thing. For the gear, we're picking up a chain shirt, spear, shield, 5 javelins, and explorer's pack. And for the fighting style, we are getting great weapon fighting. Now, you could go with dueling again, but I went with great weapon fighting because this allows you to use your spear in 2 hands and attack somebody. And then when you really need that AC, you can switch to one-handed and throw on that shield. But for the most part, you're going to be using great weapon fighting, using it 2-handed. At level 2, we get the Physical Spearazon subclass, and that gives us Jab. Once per turn, when you make a melee weapon attack with a lance, pike, spear, or trident as a part of the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of those attacks with 3 attacks, but you don't add your ability score modifier to the attack and damage rolls. Each of those attacks must target the same creature. Now, note, 3 attacks. I called this the Mage Hunter build. That's because Jab deals damage 3 times. So that means that if they're maintaining concentration on a spell, they have to make 3 concentration checks to maintain that concentration. Now, it's intended that this is to kind of guarantee damage rather than pumping a ton of damage. It's more supposed to be more consistent. But it also means that your critical hits are going to hit very, very often. If you can get advantage on this attack, you're not looking for a hit, you're looking for a natural 20. If you get advantage on these attacks, you are rolling 6 times. And that makes Piercer very, very powerful. So, you can take this build in any number of directions. For the level 4 feat, you could go with Heavy Armor Master. I went with Resilient. Resilient allows you to... it gives you +1 to any ability modifier or ability score, as well as giving you proficiency in that saving throw. I went with Strength because it rounds out the bonus from Piercer, but also having strength saving throw. Imagine things like web, for example, or I think it's web, or Ivard's black tentacles, for example, locking you down in place and keeping you in that place, and so you're unable to actually get to them. Being able to break free is very, very handy. Now, there's a glaring weakness in the charisma side of things, but we're not going to talk about that. Moving on, at level 6, we get piercing critical. Whenever you roll a critical strike, you can roll your damage dice an additional time and choose either result. This is kind of great weapon master? Nope, brutal savage attacker. That's what it is. This is savage attacker for critical strikes. That's basically it. And in fact, you can, if you really, really want to, like I said, if you want to build it this way, you can pick up savage attacker and just have a ton of reroll and a ton of damage. But I decided not to go that way. At level 8, we're picking up Mage Slayer as a feat. Now, this is where mages start to be very worried about this class, or about this build, because Mage Slayer grants disadvantage on concentration checks whenever you hit a creature, or whenever you hit that creature. And if they try to cast a spell while you are within 5 feet of them, then you can, as a reaction, hit them. So you are walking up to mages, and you are stabbing them repeatedly and with gusto. So this is a very, very, very dangerous build if you are facing down magic creatures, which is one of the reasons why I said you could build this slightly differently. A friend of mine actually did a Mage Slayer build in my roommate's campaign, and it was disgusting and painful to see. I cast Misty Step. Yeah, but do you really? It's wonderful. At level 10, we get Impale. If instead of making a weapon attack, you can just hit. It's a guaranteed hit, but it has a chance of breaking your weapon. On a D100, you have to roll a D100, and if the result is less than or equal to the attack's damage roll, that includes all the other bonuses. That means great weapon fighting. That means your strength modifier. That means the weapons dice. All that. If it is equal to or less than the result, your weapon breaks. So that means stock up on spears. If you don't have additional, say, lances, then you're going to be screwed. And it's also very difficult to carry around multiple lances. They're heavy, and just be careful about how you use that ability. It's very good for when it's like, oh, they are, I don't know, there's an illusion or something, or you're blind. Yeah, you're blind and you can't see them. You walk up to them and you say, I'm attacking that. Keep in mind, inner sight. All right, for level 12, we get an ability score increase, bumping our strength up to 20. And then at level 15, we get Fend. Fend is a very nice area of effect. You attack everybody within range of your weapon. This is why getting weapons with reach, such as the lance or the pike, is very handy. And this is why I suggest picking up a pike in your gear, because if you are facing down minions or whatnot, you can just attack everybody within 10 feet of you. Have the paladin or whatever start kicking people your direction, and you just spin around in a circle and stab everyone that gets close to you. So multiple attacks, again, critical hits are very, very good for this class. This is a crit fishing build. At level 16, however, we are going to bump up our constitution. Because we don't have the defense fighting style, because we don't have we don't have heavy armor master, where our defense is somewhat lacking. So picking up an additional point into constitution gives us an additional ton more hit points. It also bumps up the constitution saving throws, and because you're on the front lines, you're going to want that. And then at level 19, I went with tough. Now, this could be another 2 points into Constitution to bump that saving throw up. And it's really, do you want to have a +1 to your Constitution saving throws or 20 additional hit points? Because either way, you're getting 20 hit points because of your Constitution going up by an additional 1 point. But Tough gives you 2 hit points per level. So which one do you value more? It's entirely up to you. And that is it. I really hope that you've enjoyed this. I certainly did. Editing is going to be a pain, though, because it's an hour and a half long, hour and 15. But this is kind of some suggestions for if you want to build out the Amazon. I've given you some ideas of what I thought you could go for. But it's up to you. If you want to build your class, your character slightly differently, go for it. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you inspiration. You can spend that inspiration to re-roll a d20 next time, or get advantage depending on the edition. But I think that is going to be it. I hope you have enjoyed this. I know I did. And I'll see you next time. Thanks, Josh. You can find me at XenosFan2, that is XENOZFAN2 on Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.